Today, I'm paying a visit to Tiam Rastegar, Executive Director of Trailhead and Trailhead North, Boise's premier downtown incubators. Incubators are popping up across the state, helping startups survive the ideation and validation stages, leading to scale and bringing those products to market.
Hey, Derek, good to see you, buddy. How are you, man?
Very good. How are you?
Welcome to Charlotte.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Give me the floor.
Well, dude, your first time in, huh?
Very good.
So this is our original space. This is where we started 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago, and it is known as the hot desk model. So this is a great open co-working space, meaning these desks are first come, first serve on a membership model. And who we have here are entrepreneurs who are in their very early stages of either ideation and are working towards MVP or product. So that's the gist of who you see here. And typical with, nationwide statistics on profiles, there's about 20% of folks here who are true entrepreneurs with either an idea or a business, and the rest is made up of folks who have a side hustle, folks who are employed with a large or small or medium-sized tech company, telecommuters, remote workers, students coming here sometimes. So it's really a mix of a lot of different demographic and profiles of people that come here.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. So the primary reason we want people to come here is so that we can help them. Incubation is all about helping people. In our business model, that's the case anyways. And so if you want to think about someone showing up at the door with an idea on a napkin, and they have a full-time job, and they're not sure whether this idea is worth pursuing, think of the number of ideas that people come up with that are actually good and have legs and have runway, but that never come to fruition because those people don't find the help, the support, the resources to actually do it, right? And those people themselves may not be really good at that anyways. Right? They might be good at a widget or something that is related to the idea. So incubation from Trailhead's point of view is all about protecting the entrepreneur, protecting their idea from these forces that are at play in the market, mainly expenses, call it that, so that they have runway to develop an idea so it doesn't die prematurely, if you will. So that's what to us incubation is all about. I compare it to incubating chicks in a brooder, right? You're protecting them from the environment, you're giving them food, you're giving them water, you're cleaning them up. You make sure that they have access to the things that they need to survive initially until they're big enough and strong enough to do most things on their own. And so after folks join Trailhead Basecamp, which is our great open co-working space, we realized that we would incubate them to a point, most of the time to an MVP or some kind of product that they could actually sell or get some kind of customer feedback on. And then they needed to add people to their team. Again, this entrepreneur isn't good at everything it takes to run a business. They're probably good at one or two things. And so they needed to add folks to their team. They needed to invite clients, potential investors and suppliers, and manage a lot of relationships with other people. And so we built our own halfway home called Trailhead North across the street, and I'll take you there in a minute.
Excellent.
That's typically where folks with an MVP or product go to, and then now they need to add people. It's further incubation before they go out and are exposed to the real world and those market dynamics that I talked about earlier. And so it's in our best interest as a community to ensure that we protect and incubate ideation at its early stage to give it some legs. And that's what, in essence, incubation is all about to us. There's different incubation models around the country. Some are very milestone-based, some are time-based, some are outcome-based. We're kind of a hybrid of that. We're definitely not an accelerator because we don't have a fund attached to Trailhead per se. And so we really focus on the early stage, courtship, ideation, right up to entity formation and right up after that. And at that point, I think you've incubated all you can,
Yeah.
and then it's time for the entrepreneurs to kind of graduate on into the real world.
So how does Trailhead keep the lights on?
It's a good question. So we have our revenue model is multifold. So we have a membership model where As you can obviously see, there's members in the space. They pay monthly fee to use our space. We also rent private offices over at Trailhead North. I'll show you that in a minute. But then that's heavily supplemented by sponsorships from the community and donations. And also programming that is also another way for us to raise sponsorship dollars. But really, if it wasn't for the city of Boise starting this initially with the three amigos, as we call them, the three founders of Trailhead, we wouldn't be around. And I'll just be really frank about that. It's the cities and the business communities, those three folks represent the business community. It's their initiative of planting seeds of entrepreneurship here, keeping entrepreneurs here, good paying jobs here, building a vibrant business community that then leads to a vibrant community, which is the bottom line. So, back to if it wasn't for the city, I don't think we'd be around today.
Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah.
Tell me what some of the outcomes are for a city like Boise when you have an incubator, an active and lively incubator like Trailhead.
Yeah, that's a good question. Look, there's many answers to that. So from a very high level dry metrics point of view, here's what I report out on. I report out on the number of jobs that we create. I report out on the revenue that our members generate from their businesses and the amount of funds that they raise, whether it's debt or equity or whatever it is. So those are sort of at the top, right? But then they trickle down to other things. Because if you create jobs, high-paying jobs that is, and if you help companies generate revenue and they raise money, in essence, what you're doing is you're planting seeds to uplift an entire economy, okay? And so if you think about outcomes, tax base is something that the city is concerned about, right? Affordable housing is something that the city is concerned about. There's definitely a periphery of impact that places like Trailhead have. Again, our focus is early stage, but when that story unfolds and entrepreneurs and members go to other service providers and stations in this ecosystem, of which we're just one station, those other benefits, those ancillary benefits, kind of come to fruition. If you really think about it, look, economic well-being, or if you want to call it, let me think of a better word for it. It's not economic well-being. What I'm trying to say is, wealth creation and just the welfare of a community, right, is closely tied to the output, their GDP, if you will. And so if we do better at helping people create businesses, create jobs, and create value for other people, all those ancillary, indirect effects to the city, they're pretty obvious.
It grows on every end.
Yeah.
And when you think about the difficulties to bring a product to market, how hard that is, the difficulties to start a business, to recruit people, do all those things. For you to create sort of a risk mitigation zone for people early on while they're going through ideation, proving their products out, it's just a beautiful thing because there's already so much to worry about in that food chain of things, that if somebody can get that support early on, give their product a chance, think about it the right way, turn to resources that you guys have around you to turn inward towards Trailhead, you're giving people chances.
You got it. So there's a couple different ways of kind of unpacking that. So for one, yes, if people can just get a glimpse of Derek's lessons learned on what not to do when you start a business.
Got lots of those.
Lots of those. They have a huge leg up already. There's at least 10 mistakes when I make it. There's 10 mistakes that they don't have to make anymore, right? Mm-hmm. So knowledge in an entrepreneurial community and society and an ecosystem is sort of built like that, right? They're really, you can get a business book, you can, there's tons of literature on it, but it's different when it's from your tribe, from your community, person to person. So that's what we call mentorship. So if you think about space as an anchor for our incubation, it really is a commodity. You can get space technically anywhere, right? It's the other things we do with the space that then truly becomes an incubation unit. You said a few things. De-risking is something that's on people's minds, and I'll get into this in a second. And also friction points. So the whole point of incubation is to help entrepreneurs and their ideas to survive. And the how is by removing those friction points that you talk about. Access to early stage resources, quite frankly, for free of charge. Because many folks who have ideas that are entrepreneurial in nature, one of the barriers to entry in markets, even in digital product markets is I have a full-time job. I need to either wind that down and make enough money over here so I can stop doing that over there. And that is just not as easy. So what we like to do is we like to bring people in and smother them with resources.
That's right.
We just smother them. And oftentimes folks go on the journey and self-select out. And they come back with another widget years later. And that is the other part of incubation that I've been truly enjoying is teaching people about entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is so much more than just starting a business. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of life. Like you see a problem, do you run towards it or do you run away from it? Kind of tells me who you fall on the entrepreneurial
It's
spectrum.
an infinite thought process.
It
You're
really
always
is.
building yourself up.
It's not finite. You nailed it. So if the finite mindset really kind of goes against this infinite mindset that starting a business really takes, in my opinion. But as you teach people these entrepreneurial methods, these skills, as you incubate them as people, not necessarily their idea, you're teaching them skills even if they're not going to be an entrepreneur. Meaning if they don't start a business, which by the way doesn't make them not an entrepreneur, they can still be entrepreneurial and work for a business and bring those skill sets to life in that business. So many different ways of measuring success. I always say, the ROI on a city or state-sponsored incubation entrepreneurial support service center is really hard to figure. And I equate it sort of to what's the ROI on a park for a city, right? We have some harder metrics there that we can work with, but look, at the end of the day, it's about people and getting them through a journey.
Well, and a direct impact that my company had was an introduction through Trailhead that expanded us internationally. So it's hard to quantify that, but it's through you and through Trailhead.
And you bring up a good point, actually, Derek. And so incubation, like I said, there's many different models around the country. There's some that are very bound by time or milestones. We're more free-flowing and agnostic to that because, quite frankly, the ecosystem in Idaho, the startups, small businesses, and medium-sized businesses in Idaho are so diverse that if we had like a cookie-cutter one-size-fits-all approach, it wouldn't work. SM Heuristics at the time, now Vessel, had a certain need, and we were incubating you by making an introduction that could lead to sales, right? That was the need at the time. Other members of ours have different needs, and you were sort of a later stage company when compared to the ones that we used to deal with. But that's the other point I think you're making, and I like it, is incubation isn't always just one thing.
That's right.
And
it's not always on the inside of these walls, right?
It's not, matter of fact, it's not. I prefer it if it's not only on the inside of this wall, because space is the commodity. It's the mentorship, experiential learning, and the ecosystem building, which is in a fancy word for saying community building. Those are the pieces that make the space magical. And that has to happen here. The introductions typically happen here. You recall your event was here.
That's right.
So there is an in-person part to this, but incubation is definitely not bound to this area.
That's wild. I love what you guys are doing.
Thanks, man. I love it too.
Let's keep
That's why I'm
talking
here.
about this.
Yeah, good. So let me share a little bit more about the various ways of incubation we just talked about. Like I said, it doesn't always have to be the one thing. And one thing I'd like to see there is, as folks join us again with ideas on napkins, we really take great pride in or when they create an actual business and they start generating revenue. So we have the celebration of them graduating. And as you can see, up against the wall, we got a few names up there like Big Cedar Media. That's a one-person show. He's a filmmaker. Doesn't typically fit your startup incubation SaaS model. Again, I'm pretty agnostic to that. But then you have Love Every, who does fit that. Killer Creamery, formerly known as Killer Way. Ice cream company started here. They're a CPG company. The other thing too about incubation is you typically see around the country that incubators will tend to focus on one or two verticals. An incubator might be really good at incubating SaaS products. The other one might be a CPG focused. Again, our ecosystem doesn't quite necessitate a vertical focus quite yet. It may in the future. So we're pretty agnostic still. And you got National Intelligence System up there, Gluten-Free Galaxy, another CPG company. But here's one I want to show you, talk to you more about, I'm excited about, because it also exemplifies a different way of incubating. So Washi, they make a smart toilet seat. And believe it or not, this was quite the hit when we installed it here at Trailhead. But the installation of the toilet seat is actually sort of the end of our incubation services today. So Washi didn't start at Trailhead, nor did they grow their company here. We've gotten to know the founder through our ecosystem activities, and he applied at Boise Startup Week at the $20,000 pitch competition in 2018, I believe, and he won. So he won 20 grand. He took the 20 grand. So that was like one way that we helped them. They needed cash. It was non-dilutive cash. We didn't take any equity in return. And all we asked for them is like, hey, next year come back and report out. You know, with some entrepreneurs and businesses, in 12 months they're not going to be around anymore. And that's a risk we're willing to take. This was our way of de-risking Washington. The 20 grand helped them continue product development and build up some inventory. Okay? Then when the pandemic hit and the business had to deal with some supply chain issues because they sourced from Asia, what then happened is he needed a customer. And what better place to do that than here? So we were Washi's first check.
Oh,
right?
that's
I got two smart toilet seats out of it, which is great. It's hygienic and my members love it. Also get to tell Washi's story. But
I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan too. But really what this signifies is that was one other thing Trailhead could do to help them get on the map. First check, now people will see it here, they will use it here, we put it on social media. Basically anyone who knows Trailhead and has ever used, our facilities from our private industry partners is now a potential customer to them. Right. So like we did for you at the time, it was kind of tailored to your needs, and in this case, it was also tailored to their needs. Washi did not need space here. They did need mentors, so we introduced them to some folks, and they did need investors, so they had those talks early on. But really what they needed was money in the bank, oxygen to get to the land of death, into the land of profit, hopefully, and I hope they get there. And the next thing was they needed a customer, again, to get out of that land of death and into the land of profit.
It's a big swing.
Viable business.
Where are they at right now?
They are, like I said, so about a month ago, they got their first check from us. Okay. So they're in the very early stages. They have built up inventory now. That was a hurdle they had to overcome. And now that they're built up inventory, you can actually follow them on social media. They are installing almost every day. So there's all these cool pictures of Rob in random bathrooms around the country installing smart toilet seats.
Now, are they doing their manufacturing here?
They do manufacturing in Asia.
Okay.
And final assembly, I believe, is done here. And then, yes.
Okay. Perfect.
But, in terms of, you talk about from idea to commercialization, that journey, that path, there's so many things that go sideways. And quite frankly, we can't mitigate all of them. But there's some that we can.
Well, if you can give a lift on, one of those things, you're really helping an entrepreneur.
Look, oftentimes it's when folks get together to start a business, usually people are the biggest wild card, and people are typically the reason that the business fails. It's probably not the product always. Yeah. And so, an early conversation with a lawyer, for example, is $250 an hour. Now, you haven't even formed a business yet. You're going to put this on a personal card. Not everybody can do that. And even those who can might go, I'll Google this one.
That's right.
I'll save the $350 because I need to put $350 into something else. Well, without calling it like a true session with a lawyer, your lawyer, we know lawyers. Perkins Coie, for example, is a founding member of Trailhead, and they incorporated us. We do office hours with them where they won't give you the answer and the document for you to go do it. Right? They're in business also to make money, but they'll certainly help you ask the right questions and help you and point you to resources. Because at the end of the day, for service providers who are mentors that we bring to the table and that we smother the members with, what's in it for them is these are future clients of theirs. Again, back to if you build startups, they will become small businesses. They will become medium-sized businesses. Eventually, they'll become the Microns and the Simplots. But you have to plant the seed.
Right? You have to plant the seed, and then you have to nurture.
The nurturing part is where I get really excited, and I think it's perceived as a culture shift here in Idaho, and I quite disagree with that actually, because and I mentioned too, Simplot and Micron. Simplot incubated Micron.
That's right.
Simplot wrote a check to Micron in the early days when they needed it. And then Simplot had, they had their own motivations and reasons for doing that. But, it's something we've done. It's something that's led to success. And we're obviously, now in an ecosystem where Simplot and Micron are two of the core, the foundations, if you will, or at least two of them, and there's more. And so I've always thought like helping people is an Idaho thing. It certainly is, something we do in Boise all the time. So helping people with business isn't a far stretch. Helping people with business to make an impact on the community, that's what brought me here.
Yeah, excellent. And it's not just about whether or not an established business survives. It's getting businesses to become established businesses, growing the ecosystem underneath.
Yeah, and to become an established business, you have to survive the early days of, the top 5 things that can go wrong. Again, a simple conversation around a founder agreement. How did Derek and Tiam start a business without hating each other in a year, right? Now, not that an agreement is going to completely take care of that, but it's certainly going to lay the groundwork for us to start thinking about those things.
That's right.
Because right now, you and I are just focused on the widget and finding a customer. We haven't even formed a business.
Right. And your neighbors already learned this lesson.
Exactly.
You're
exactly.
Perkins Coie.
They have learned a lesson. Now, the other thing about community building around this notion is also that you will have lessons learned, subject matter expertise within your community. So Derek can bump into, Mike over there and be like, hey, Mike, I got ad fatigue going on one of my Facebook ads. Do you know anything about that? Oh, let me tell you all about ad fatigue. I'm fatigued of ad fatigue. Just making that up. But yeah, you gain access to those kind of resources, and they're not always accompanying. They're not always a service provider, treating you as a lead at the top of their funnel, and then you eventually become a client. It's your peers. And that's where I think Charlotte in particular is a really cool place, because you get that sense of community that you may not get at other incubators. And that's something that we leverage at the strength of ours.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. Cool. So the other thing we do at Charlotte is we host events. I talked about experiential learning.
We've had an event here.
You had an event here. Another form of incubation, quite frankly, is to help early stage entrepreneurs, startups, and businesses, help them raise awareness around what it is they do. What problems are they solving? Could they be potential clients to other Boise businesses? Could they be potential customers to other of our members' businesses? And at the end of the day, once you kind of start socializing and talking about the thing that you're working on, you'll find that people are going to want to help you. You'll find that people may know a thing or two about it. But until you bring it out and you talk about this, there's this human to human piece, which is at the end of the day what incubation is all about. You kind of miss out on that. So I really like events where we bring in, for example, Boise Pitch Night. We bring in 3 companies a quarter. The vast majority of them are not Trailhead members, but our incubation services for that go as far as, look, we'll bring investors to this event and we'll bring startups to this event. And we will get out of the way. Like, if you guys make a deal, that's between the two. We're just a platform for you all to meet. We don't get a cut, but if you do place and they get investment, we want to log that as a success, but also that then will lead to deployment of capital. What are you going to do with it? Hopefully you're going to create jobs. So you don't always have to be a member to benefit from our services. Like I said earlier, Washi wasn't a member. And so, a lot of checks have been handed off on this stage. We hand off checks to CPG companies in a competition called Trail Mix. They get 20 grand. We have our $20,000 pitch competition. Those checks are also awarded here. We give checks to kids in high schools in rural Idaho in a program called You Lead Idaho. Back to incubation. We actually feel that reaching all the way to students, so downstream from us, who may be our future members or clients, is a worthwhile thing, because the sooner you instill entrepreneurship as a method, as a way of thinking, as a way of life, as a mindset in people, and you get them used to being incubated, and I know that sounds weird, but it's not something you and I naturally do, actually, Derek. We're not always wired to ask for help with everything. Especially in Idaho, we have a very frontier, do-it-myself mentality. And so once you get them used to, look, it's okay to have a mentor. Actually, mentorship is a thing. It can be a formal thing or informal thing. But once people get used to the idea of getting help, reaching out for help, not always with monetary exchange in mind, but for building a business to make a good impact on the community, you train them to do that later on in life. And you equip them with entrepreneurial skills. So I'm pretty excited about You Lead Idaho. It's one small example of incubation, kind of in a programmatic way. Yeah. Questions? That's the other thing about incubation. You typically look at what assets do you already have in the community, for example, I don't want to say easy, but it's a lower hanging fruit for Trailhead to incubate food companies for CPG than it is crypto. The reason is we have Albertsons headquartered here. They've now gone public.
And for our audience, CPG.
Consumer packaged goods. Thank you. Winco is headquartered here. And with that come all the co-packers, the distributors, and the various service providers that come along with that. So we have a lot of assets around that here. And not to mention we have lots of food production here and farming. So it's a low hanging fruit to choose that one and incubate. And typically communities will do that. They will incubate around their strengths, and out of those strengths then come other peripheral strengths and other peripheral verticals that aren't necessarily related to the initial one. For example, the consumer packaged good or the retail firm Albertsons brought with them, again, distributions, brokers, and co-packers to the Boise Valley. And so, that wasn't necessarily part of their intention, but that happened. So what else can we do with those kind of verticals now that they're here? And so, all that said, are you ready to walk over to the toilet?
Yeah, thanks for the tour.
Yeah, you got it.
Let's go see North.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So let me ask you some questions.
Yeah, what's up?
When you think about the Idaho Technology Council, the tech to market group, and our membership base, why should the members of ITC and tech to market care about incubators and Trailhead?
That's a really good question. Look, at the end of the day, the big picture is all boats rise. So if you're in a business community and you have other businesses around you achieving success, it's more likely that you're achieving success. And there's some indirect ways of measuring that, right? So the big industry partners that support us, typically the reasons they do that is they want access to innovation that they themselves can't do in-house or aren't equipped to do because they're so focused on the core. They want access to entrepreneurial people, which is also something they are not necessarily good at because, again, they are after their core competency. They also want to have the ability to attract talent to Boise by showing them that Boise is a vibrant community where there's lots of businesses, lots of opportunity, and a good quality of life. You kind of carry that forward. It goes all the way to private industry partners of ours may have acquisition targets come out of Trailhead. They may have their future client come out of Trailhead or their future service provider come out of Trailhead. The one piece that a lot of the local private industry partners joke about all the time is, and I'm getting a smirk, you can't see it, it's under my mask, is that they like to poach talent from each other, right? Talent is such a key ingredient to building a vibrant, ecosystem and business environment, so that when private industry partners help us generate more businesses and create that vibrancy from technology going from people's heads to the market, they're creating, the future talent pool of our city. And so that's a huge reason why people and private industry partners in particular should care about a place like Trailhead. Is at the end of the day, we help you create all those environmental factors that then help you be a successful business where you are. Whether that's you need access to innovation. Give you an example. Albertsons is a great example for this. They want to feature more local product. They want access to food product innovation. And they're Albertsons, meaning they're a grocer. That's in the kind of real estate company. That's their core business. Their core business isn't finding the next food product entrepreneur at the farmer's market. So they offload that to us. They delegate that to us. We become their outsourced partner. So then we do Trail Mix, which is a pitch competition, and the winner gets 20 grand. Most importantly, the winner gets shops on Albertsons space, right? So now Albertsons says this is their impetus as to why they're participating. They want to create a vibrant food product community here that then ends up on their shelf, right? And so you can apply that same logic to many others. We have reverse pitch competitions with private industry partners from the construction industry. That's one that the Boise State Venture College put on and brought to Boise Startup Week last year. Now, construction industry goes, hey guys, we have a hard time attracting, young, new talent to construction because it's an unsexy job. People think it's a job from the Stone Age. No one wants to do it. Well, we have some pretty cool things going on, and we want them to see that, but we can't expose it to them. What should we do? I think the BSC Venture Capital did a great job and said, why don't we just do a reverse pitch talk? Name some of the big problems you have as an industry, just throw them out there to our entrepreneurial community and see what kind of solutions they come up with. Now, short of one actually being a solution that you want to do, you have now just engaged with up to 50 or however many people you involve, of thinkers, of scientists, of students, of entrepreneurs who are now thinking about your problem on your behalf. So those are just two examples as to ways that caring as a private industry partner that materializes into the community.
Oh yeah. Well, how do they contribute directly?
Financially, it's actually very easy. I take checks. That's probably the easiest answer I can give you. But my favorite supporters aren't only the ones that help us financially. And to help us financially is really making a commitment to keeping our doors open. I particularly like those private industry partners, like the Albertsons, for example, who support us monetarily, but then they one-up that with resources, support, and mentorship, right? Like Albertsons could just write us a check, but they're writing us a check and they're putting on trail mix, taking one of the winners and putting them on their shelf, right? So that's just one way of going a step further. And we find it with most of our private industry partners that they're not just interested in writing us a check. They want to write us a check, they want to roll up their sleeves, they want to get involved, and that's my favorite kind of partner right there.
Oh, that's phenomenal.
In the history, we've had just under 1,500 members. Currently, we have 162 active members, and we peaked out at about 300 members. But in my reporting, I can say that we have helped, touched, supported over 400 startups or entrepreneurs since inception. And if you take, for example, 2019 was a stellar year for us. Our members generated $22 million in revenue.
We're gonna have to walk by that.
They raised $22 million in funds, and they created over 32 full-time jobs. Jobs that are higher than average paying. And so it's really a numbers game. Oftentimes you'll start with the top of the funnel, the ideation, which is part of tech to market. I mean, to get to it has to be born in someone's head somewhere, right? So again, we're very much focused on the early stage, but yet we see that a lot of our members are with us for longer before they graduate out. I can give you some examples. But I talked to you earlier about what we do at Basecamp, right? Early stage, idea on a napkin, you need to get to an MVP. So lots of customer discovery, lots of early stage product market fit, lots of traction, lots of interviews with customers, right? And so when they get to the MVP stage, like I said, it's typically when they need to add people, they need to grow, but they're not quite ready to sign a 1-year lease in downtown Boise for office space. They're not quite ready to bring a lawyer on retainer. They're not quite ready to bring on a CMO or do a complete, launch a brand initiative. They're really much, hey, I'm a proof of concept. Can I build this thing? The next step is I'm building a prototype so I can see if this is usable. So can it be built? Can people use this? The last one then is when you get to MVP is, will people actually pay for this? That's sort of the question you're asking when building an MVP. You're looking for product market fit.
That's right.
And then beyond
looking for some validation.
Validation.
Yeah.
And then beyond your MVP is production. That's when you scale, you repeat. Right. So and we deal with entrepreneurs across that spectrum, and right as they get to production, it's typically time for them to move out.
Oh, yeah.
So let me show you north. This
Excellent.
is where graduates from Basecamp typically come to. We also take in direct applications for this space, meaning you don't have to be a Basecamp member to graduate into this space. It just depends on what your needs are. Back to the needs-based assessment.
This is a walk down memory lane for me.
Yeah? Oh, let me guess. Cafe au lait, 2-for-1 margaritas.
Loved it. There used to be a movie theater here.
Oh, now
Years
you're
ago.
dating yourself because I don't remember that.
But on the far corner was my first office space as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
There and there. Yep. So It's just cool to come full circle.
So Black Box VR was actually in that space. They just moved out.
Black Box
Today,
is in my old office space.
Small world, huh?
That's right. The whiteboards in there were our whiteboards.
Okay. We can even take a quick walk through there. You know, this space is a little different.
I didn't know the black box in there.
Meaning, you get a key code to access it, whereas as opposed to our base camp space, you basically open to the public during business hours, that is. And yes, we are very secure to the point where your executive director can't even get in. All right, welcome. So you might pick up on a different vibe. Like instantly, it's all quieter, right?
Mm-hmm.
We built this 2 years after we opened at Basecamp because we realized we're putting out all these MVP-ready entrepreneurs out there, and they're still in the land of death. That are running against time, running out of cash, and they're just dying out there. So that's why I called this a halfway home.
You need that second stage of.
And we didn't quite know until we built the first stage to truly understand what that second stage is, right?
It's beautiful.
So what you see here is a space that caters to those later stage needs. Dedicated desks, you know, a controlled, a door. You can leave your stuff here. This becomes your desk. You have bookable conference rooms. You have 2 ad hoc conference rooms. We have 5 private offices that are all occupied by small business owners. We even have a nursing room in here, you guys. I mean, to incubate truly means to cater to people's needs. And you know, young mothers who have ideas to start a business, they have to make some trade-offs in their lives, right? I mean, they have a young child to care for. So often, you know, I don't know how many times, but I can see that being sort of a decision process. You know, how much time do I want to spend away? So we try to make it as painless as we possibly can. Now, I will say this, Boise in general is, in the Treasure Valley, is a very friendly place to female entrepreneurs. I heard this directly from Jessica Rolfe. She told me the story of, you know, she's not from here, but when she started her business here, the one before Love Every, she told me that I came to the realization that Boise is the kind of place where you can have, as a woman, as a mother, the kind of work-life balance to still be a mom for your family, but also be an entrepreneur and start a business. And in other places, she found it very difficult because of the life and quality balance and just time demands. You know, it stays light till 10 p.m. in the summer. That's one thing she also told me, like, you can get lots done in one day. But, you know, Love Every was in here. They occupied 3 offices. They were 16 then. This was 14 months, give or take, ago. And they're now at 180 employees. So when they leave us, it's usually, you know, they're busting out of all seams and they need to just get their own space, which they did. They're down in the Athos building. But I think that's probably the highest occupation rate by a single member was Love Every, taking up 3 offices, but for good reason.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're rock stars.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's another cool space in here called the Learning Center. We actually, back to incubation and what incubation truly means in terms of talent in this case, we brought in a coding boot camp called Coding Dojo. They're no longer here, but they sort of leveraged Trailhead as their jump off point, as their, you know, their strategic entry into the Boise market, if you will. So this was their campus, but our tie to it was, for one, they rented the space from us, which was nice. But the second thing is they taught people how to code. They also launched an apprenticeship program. So again, the tech to market, one of the key ingredients is talent, people who are able to build the technology that you want to take to market. Coding Dojo was helping us produce those people. And with their apprenticeship model, it was cool because those very same private industry partners that I mentioned earlier as to why they should support us would stand in line trying to hire these folks that were graduating from here. So just another cool, like 1-2 punch, you know, around the same pain point of talent, just another way of approaching it. It's not a university, it's not a 4-year degree.
More accessible, yeah, and specialized, right?
Specialized, more accessible, you know, from the point of view of the folks who are going through it. And that's what excites me also about, philosophically, about tech to market and incubation. And I alluded to it earlier, entrepreneurship can truly change and uplift an entire economy. I actually view entrepreneurship even more philosophically as a tool to democratize our lives, to democratize assets, to democratize equity, inclusion. I really like the fact that we can empower people, especially in this country, to sort of take their fate in their own hand and build something that they can then commercialize, right? And I think oftentimes there's this romantic story that's told from the time the idea comes to the time it's commercialized, but so much happens in between. And that's the space in between that we like to get busy in.
That's where the work's done.
Yeah, like people like you there, because I always, not that I try to put you in a bucket, but look, there's like, I deal with so many different entrepreneurs, right? So many different people trying to take their technology to market in different ways, from different backgrounds. And it's interesting to me kind of profiling the different kind of entrepreneur, right? But there is a kind of entrepreneur or person who is good at starting stuff. They're good at the idea phase. They're good at evangelizing people around them, getting everyone to drink the Kool-Aid, and then they go. And they love closing deals, they love bringing on customers, but as soon as it comes to, oh, we have an HR problem, or, oh, who is this person? Oh, we have a new hire. I am starting to not know people's names anymore. There's certain people that don't like that environment. They want to check out.
Right.
They want to go build the next thing. Now there's others who kind of take that over, and they're not good at building things from scratch, but they're good at taking something half-baked and turning it into something else.
That's right.
So it's these different phases that businesses go through. And our large private industry partners have realized that even within their own business model, as established as they are still going through those same iterative processes. Now, in some cases, they come to us for help. In other cases, they build it in-house. But sort of that blend of the two is the space that we operate. Does that make sense?
So exciting. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
I love it.
now that Coding Dojo is gone, we're looking to rent the space out. But in the meantime, again, back to incubation, we let One Stone High School use the space off and on. They're very entrepreneurial in their curriculum. We partner with them on many different fronts. But again, planting seeds in early stage heads of entrepreneurs is kind of what you see at work here. Yeah, we love One Stone. We love what they do. And they're definitely part of this this growing startup ecosystem here.
Yeah, that's where the mindset starts, right?
That's right. And you got to nurture it.
You got to nurture
It's
it.
not just enough to put up a competition for them and rah, you give them a check and then you check out. You can't do that. You
No.
really got to hold their hand and take them to the next milestone in their journey. And look, there's some different philosophies on government's role, private industry's role in all this, and I've certainly heard that, but isn't that private industry's job? Isn't that what you guys are supposed to do? And the answer is yes, and with your help, right? Because again, it's not, building businesses isn't just about business people. It's not just about the business community. I said it earlier, there's tax-based implications, there's quality of life implications, there is, hey, my kid can actually stick around here and get a decent job implications, all the way to, hey, I'm looking for a generational handoff of my business. There's so much more to entrepreneurship than just, for business people, stuffing their pockets with profits. It goes so much further than that. And that is, again, the space that we like to occupy. We don't have anything against folks who take a technology to market and make hay. We're all for that. But again, we get to be very agnostic when it comes to who we work with, how we work with them, what stage they're in, and what vertical they're in. Earlier, I mentioned to you a little bit about our positioning in this bigger ecosystem, right? Early stage, idea on napkin to MVP. Now, I also touch a little bit on some of the programs that feed into us. The Boise State Venture College, UofI's entrepreneurship program, One Stone, our own You Lead IDO program. So we plant seeds in the future entrepreneurs. But if we end it, I'd be short-sighted because there's a slew of services providers that come after us and are sort of at the same time as us too. If you want to think about where does a company go after they graduate Trailhead? I'm just throwing it out there. Stage.0 happens to be, the arrival of institutional capital here in Boise. That's one place they can go. Dan DeClaus from PlexTrack started at Trailhead. He started very much along the lines of what I said earlier. He had a full-time job, but he had this idea. It was about his job, but he had this idea. He was smart enough not to quit just on a whim of an idea, but he knew he had to do something. So he went and he participated in one of our programs, Idea Set Go. Took it to an MVP, baked it out enough, got some customers to where he could make that decision to say, you know what, this is actually a thing that I'm going to get behind 100%. I'm going to wind down my job, my paycheck job, right? And so this one example of that. And if you think about Who else comes after us? Venturecapital.org. They're a partner of ours that we oftentimes refer people to if they need specific help with their pitch deck, or they want to go and pitch to investors in Utah. They have the Investors Choice Conference over there that we have access. We as in Trailhead have access through venturecapital.org. Stage Auto just reversed engineered an A round for PlexTrack. They're going to continue doing that for other companies. So that's another avenue that we have to kind of funnel people to. In terms of established places, I've heard of a few other incubator-like organizations that are actually in the process of moving to Boise, which usually is a big complement to the work that's already being done here. Very rarely do you see like a for-profit incubator with a fund attached to it going to a community that's not their own and building it from scratch. They typically look for the city to be engaged, the state and the county. What are you doing, Boise, to attract us? And that's where Trailhead comes in. Is they can point to us and say, look, we're building an innovation cluster. We care about entrepreneurship. This is how we support small businesses. Or one way that we support small business creation is through an entrepreneurial support center called Trailhead, and you can incubate your business there.
That's right. I don't think you can be taken serious without a solid incubation presence in any metropolitan area.
Taken serious is one thing. Let's just be frank. You can't compete.
Yeah.
So I talk to business owners all the time who are not from here, and they tell me it's usually we're on the same. They do a tour, I call it, right? We're on the same tour as Bend, Austin, Greenville, North Carolina, I want to say, and Charlotte, for example. And I'm probably wrong on Charlotte, but there's one in South Carolina, one in North Carolina we always get compared to. And then there's Lakeland in Florida. Anyways, the point I'm making is when someone comes here and goes, I'm thinking about moving my business to Idaho or to Boise because I hear, for these reasons, whatever the reasons is that appeal to them. And then the next thing is, they go, well, I've been to Austin, I just came in from Bend, and it's always the same cities there that we get compared to, right? And inevitably it comes to their ecosystem seems to be more active. They fire out of more cylinders. There's more vibe, there's more excitement, which is code for, I feel like if I go to Bend, I'm going to get more support. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I come here, I'm maybe less supported. And that's not correct, by the way, but because they haven't. Remember, this is the beginning of the meeting when they find out about Trailhead, and I get to tell them all
that's
the
right.
things. But that's sort of the perception is you choose where you can set up shop, even if you're from here, you're going to ask the question, like, what's in it for me? What are you going to do for me? Now, that's not, I wouldn't recommend that, all entrepreneurs make that their top question on their mind. Well, what can you do for me? But it's something they're going to weigh out, because de-risking, something you said earlier, in their mind, they're de-risking their venture. If I am in a place that's pro-startup, pro-tech to market, there's going to be resources that can help me. If I'm going to be in a place that, or nurtures talent creation, talent retention, I'm going to have people to hire that can actually work there. Right, so there's, again, depending on who you are and what your business is, you care about different things. But this is a signal. I mean, Trailhead is essentially the city of Boise planting a flag.
That's right.
And saying, we're on the map.
Well, I remember 2 years ago at Startup Week, sitting at Trailhead with entrepreneurs that were coming in from all over the place. We've had these best places to live, best places to work articles coming out. I remember hearing them talking about people telling them that Boise was this exciting city to come and build a business. And, I don't remember earlier that happening very often. It feels like there's some fire behind this with Trailhead and Startup Week and all these organizations that are building up around this idea, this narrative.
Right. It is an idea. It is an idea.